Today we have Corey Nelson from Princeton Club Fitchburg. Corey's the personal training director there, and we asked him to take a look at doing a program here on fitness technologies. I mean, it's a lot different from when you used to strap on your pedometer, right, and head out, and then you have to write it down in your log, and you have to remember, oh my God, where'd I put that log? I mean, these days it's with you all the time. It's on your wrist, it's in your pocket. I mean, technology's there, but what is it that you should be using? And Corey's going to give us a lot of information on that, as well as what's in, technology in the gym too. So Corey, if you'd take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that, Mike. Just a little bit of, again, background about myself. I do have a degree in exercise science. I was certified in ACE back in the day. I currently do not have that right now, but I'm working on NASM, which is the National Academy of Sports Medicine certification. And I think Mike mentioned it, I've been doing this for a while. This is my 5th year being the personal training director, and almost 10th year, almost a decade now of actually in-depth, personal training one-on-one with clients. We're changing, the world is evolving. A lot of people are relying on technology and it's at their fingertips at all times, which is, I think, the thing I want to start out with makes it crucial. Find the technology that works for all of you, right? Whether it's a wearable, whether it's an app on your phone, it could be on your iPad. Maybe it's something community oriented, right? Where maybe you've got your family and friends in on the same app or the same type of devices that are holding you accountable. The main thing is that you are getting out of it what you need and that you are seeing those results. So without kind of further ado, the first one I want to talk about is the very generic Fitbit and Apple Watch. Let me just find my notes here. So with that Fitbit, I think it makes it very, very easy to kind of get lost in the process, right? It's tracking my steps, it's tracking my stairs. And what does that truly mean for me? I'm sorry, everybody, I've got something in my eye. That's my fault. And one thing that I've found that works for my clients is picking a couple of things that really matter, right? So is it your heart rate? Do you want that to spike on a daily basis? Is it the steps that you want to track? It could be the amount of stairs. It could be the calories that you burn on a daily basis, right? A lot of that information may get lost if you're focusing on all of it at once. So again, picking some of your goals or maybe some of your limitations to be able to apply that to that technology is very, very crucial. One thing that I've also found with that Fitbit is it keeps track of your sleep, right? It keeps track of monitoring, how much sleep you get, if you're in REM sleep, if you're, kind of coming in and out. I think that's also a very important aspect of fitness that, especially as we age, right? As we get above 50, 60, 70 years old, if we're not getting adequate sleep or resting appropriately, we're not giving our bones, our ligaments, our joints, and all, the muscles an opportunity to really recover and do the things they need to do to be stronger and more efficient down the line. Another thing that we see is the Apple Watch, right? So, there's the fall assistance on there, right? Where if you have an accident, you can hit a button and somebody sends it to you, right? So it's something very, very safe, very easy to use. The Apple Watch has a few different features in terms of being able to, again, connect to people in your community, your family, your friends, holding each other accountable. And in my experience as a personal trainer, is something that's irreplaceable. So if you've got an alarm on your watch, if you've got a way to communicate with different people through your watch or through your apps, I think, again, that is one of the most important aspects of fitness. A lot of times in whatever you're going to do in life, doing it alone is tough, right? I mean, if you can have 1 or 2 or 3 other people in your corner also keeping track of some of these same goals and maybe limitations, that's only going to benefit everybody in the long run. So again, between the Fitbit and that Apple Watch, you've got all that technology at your fingertips. My biggest tip and what I've just seen in the gym and with my clients is pick some of those goals that are more relevant to what you're really looking to do. That way it doesn't overwhelm you, and you're able to be really efficient with what you do on a daily basis.
Corey, you said you want one of those goals is to have your heart spike. That sounds dangerous.
You're right, Mike. Absolutely. And there is, you want to talk to your doctor or your physician or whoever, your medical professional is. But you want to make sure that you are elevating your heart rate to a certain degree. I've got clients right now that are 80 to 90 years old, and we get their heart rates up damn near to their max. It's in a very safe setting. We're not doing anything very strenuous for a very long period of time, but without kind of testing your ticker, I use that kind of terminology, or without kind of pushing your heart a little bit, you'll never get it stronger. But you are right, Mike. You want to be able to balance, not overexerting yourself, not making sure, especially if you're on medications, if you've got, some sort of stent or some sort of device on your heart that's keeping it regular. I would consult a physician, consult your doctor, and make sure that it's very, very safe. But everybody, in my very humble opinion, again, I'm not a doctor, I don't know everything, but we should be trying to test our heart rate almost on a daily basis. Again, you want to talk to the people that you need to talk to. But I've got, clients. I had one individual has since moved away, but she was 92 years old, and we were getting her heart rate above 100, 110 beats per minute. We were doing stairs, we were doing weightlifting, resistance training, and all that stuff that comes with personal training. And we were tracking all of that through her MyFitnessPal and through her Apple Watch. So great point, Mike. Very, very good point.
How many people are using some sort of tracker? How many here, maybe just show your hand here, how many are using some sort of Fitbit or Apple tool, something to track your heart rate and whatnot? Yeah, so quite a few people absolutely are, right? And so you can follow that, like on mine, every time I get over like 110, the thing says, you're really working hard. It's like, come, but it gives me some encouragement,
And that's another, again, I go back to kind of, the fact that you've got people around you to push you, but that's what that Apple Watch or that Fitbit is going to do, right? If you're sedentary for a long extended period of time, it's going to tell you to get up and move. My main concern, especially with my clients that are over 55, 65, 75 years old, is that sedentary type of lifestyle is really going to kind of hinder results and progress moving forward. I always kind of am under the philosophy that movement is medicine. Just moving on a daily basis, making sure that your joints are lubricated, right? There's some synovial fluid in every joint that we have that needs to be worked. It needs to be kind of released throughout the body. You also have a lot of endorphins, dopamine, a lot of things in your brain and in your internal organs that react to movement and stimulus. And if that Fitbit or Apple Watch is holding you accountable and telling you that, kind of pushing you into more movement, that's only a positive. And I believe you can adjust those settings, right? You can adjust what your stair step limit is. You can adjust your goals and all those things, which is where I truly believe seeing a fitness professional comes into play. The future of fitness is absolutely revolving around technology, but I don't think anything is really going to replace actually sitting down with a trainer, with a doctor, with a health professional or a fitness professional and saying, hey, Jane Doe, John Smith, here are our goals. This is how your technology is going to assist us in getting to those goals. Now let's actually hold us all accountable and make that happen. So a great point, Mike. Everybody uses some sort of technology. Again, it's just got to be relevant to you. And if it's not, let's sit down with somebody and figure out what is going to work best for our lifestyle. I guess, does anybody have any questions about the Fitbit or maybe a wearable in general? Awesome. So the next thing I do want to talk about is my fitness.
A second about diet. The greatest thing about my Fitbit isn't that it tells me that I'm kind of lazy, but that I'm eating too much, right? And so, yep. It's become really easy to log your diet, right? This morning it says I had 453 calories, and I've got 1,500 more to go.
No, that's great. And Mike, you actually kind of segued into my next point. So I would love to talk about diet next. Everybody can, not everybody, but most people can get up and move, right? We've got our wearables, we can do all that stuff. But if we're not adequately tracking our diet in some shape or form, a lot of that could be wasted resources. It could be wasted time, right? We're not being efficient with what we're doing on a daily basis, whether it's through your wearable or maybe an app like MyFitnessPal. There's a lot of things online and on our phones now that, again, you can track your calories, you can track your protein, you can track your carbs. I try to steer my clients away from almost obsessing over tracking their diet, but I think when anybody's initially starting an exercise routine or regimen, we've got to figure out how many calories we're burning. We've got to figure out how many calories, like you mentioned, Mike, that we're eating for breakfast, and how many calories maybe we need the rest of the day to make sure that we're repairing our muscles and making sure that our joints are being taken care of in terms of nutrients and things being delivered to the brain and different organs. I strongly suggest, one thing we have in the gym is called an in-body electrical pulse through your body, and literally tracks how many calories you would burn on a daily basis, finding out your basal metabolic rate. So if you were to wake up at 6 a.m., not do anything all day long and go back to bed at about 6 p.m., how many calories does your body need to function, right? How many calories does your heart need, your internal organs, your lungs, your brain, your muscles just to move? And that doesn't include the physical exercise as well. So again, meeting with a professional that can sit down and say, Jane Doe, you are burning 2,000 calories on a daily basis. If your goal is to build muscle, we've probably got to be putting in 2,000 plus calories into our body to replenish that. On the flip side, if we're trying to potentially lose body fat or potentially lose weight, we've got to make sure that our caloric intake is 2,000, and making sure that we're not overeating on a daily or a weekly basis. The one cool thing about technology and the diet aspect is I see a lot of people, they'll have a lot of success Monday through Friday. And Saturday, Sunday comes along and, you know, it's pizza, it's chips, right? You're going out with your grandkids for ice cream, and you should absolutely be able to enjoy all those things, right? I mean, that's life. We want people to be humans and not just robots that come in the gym and track their diet. But what we see a lot is people almost, for lack of a better term, throw all the hard work away that they've done throughout the week to keep their diet in check on that Saturday and Sunday by overeating by 500 calories, 1,000 calories, sometimes 1,500 to 2,500 calories on a weekend. And what that technology will be able to do is track your weekly and monthly progress much more than just on a day-by-day basis, right? What I was going to finish on saying is just that technology is great for tracking long-term goals. Anybody can eat really well on a day-by-day basis, but can you keep your diet in check over a week? Can you keep your diet on point for a month, 2 months, 3 months at a time? And being able to track that, I think, is a very, very important part of what we do, at least here in the gym, on a daily basis. So I guess, does anybody have any diet questions? MyFitnessPal, Apple or Fitbit related?
I have a question.
Oh.
I'm trying to raise my hand and get it in the screen. Mike was
Yeah.
talking about his Fitbit that tracks calories and whatever he said, food intake. I have a Fitbit Inspire. If it does know how to track my calories, I don't know how to make it do it.
I'll be very honest with you. I have a Samsung watch, so I'm not super specific on the actual Fitbit side of things. But what I could do normally individually when I have some of those answers. Otherwise, I know Apple and Fitbit have an awesome customer service team. They have, you know, a website, they've got an app and all that stuff. I would just tinker with it. I think that's the other thing with technology. And I'll be brutally honest, I'm 30 years old, a little bit younger than the demographic we have here today, but I'm kind of born just on the front side of all this technology. So I really do rely on some of those apps and you know, learning as I go without tinkering with it. You know, you really don't know, again, what's best for you and what's going to work for you more efficiently.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Norm. I wish I had a better answer for you. I should get a Fitbit instead of a Samsung.
Mike, how do you do it? How do you track your calories on
Mike, do you have any insight on that?
Well, yeah. You know, when you set up your Fitbit, you've got to enable the first part where it is tracking your activity and is converting that into calories burned. So in the setup, that'll be part of how many calories burned. Okay, but then after that, every time you eat something, it has on mine. All I have to do is scan the barcode if it has a barcode on it, or I put in, you know, it has a huge database. I put in Fisher walnuts, halves and pieces, and it brings right up to the top, you know, that, and I click on it and I put in about what I roughly, it tells, you know, on the back of the label, it tells you this much. Usually for me, a handful is an ounce. And so I know if I have, you know, a handful of walnuts, that's an ounce, and it will calculate for you the fat, the protein, and the carbohydrate content of all of that. And then you will enable the part on there that is called the food plan, right? And that's
I think-
basically how many calories you're going to burn in a day.
I think you have a much more extensive,
Mhm.
fancier Fitbit than I do. I use a Fitbit and then I use an application called Lose It to
Okay.
track my food plan, but yours is fancier than mine. Mine doesn't
think-
have all those options.
I think you can do it with a lot of different things, right, Corey? I mean, there's so many tools. That's the thing that is really nice, is that a lot of companies gotten into this, and you can spend a lot of money like Corey and get, you know, a Samsung watch. Man, those are nice. Or, you know, you can spend 30 or 40 bucks and get a really inexpensive thing, and it'll do a fair amount of the stuff, but like Norma's saying, may not have all the bells and whistles, you know, but you know, it's just getting into the habit, you know, like right now, I forgot to log breakfast this morning, you know, and so then I'm recalling, oh, geez, I had, you know, but after you get used to it, it doesn't take a whole lot of time. And whatever diet application you choose, you know, you can do that.
And that's a great point, Mike. Not to cut you off, and Norma, you actually mentioned, I can't remember what it was that you used for your diet. Could you mention that one more time for us? What device
Lose
or
It, LOSEIT.
how do you track your diet? What
You
Lose
Lose It app.
right? And whether it's Lose It, yeah, whether it's the app, whether it's MyFitnessPal, whether it's your Fitbit, establishing a routine is something that technology is very good at nowadays, right? With artificial intelligence, there, you know, a bunch of apps like we mentioned coming out, and it might, for a lot of my clients, it seems like almost a chore initially, right? Where, gosh, I've got to log my food, I've got to jump in here and do this. But over the course of a week, 2 weeks, it really does become part of your routine. And again, it's not something that I require my clients to obsess over. I try to tell them to kind of, you know, balance the technology with everyday life best they can. But once you establish that routine, like Mike was saying, it's almost, oh gosh, I forgot to track my breakfast. I've got to go back in and do that. And you almost start to look forward to some of these things, especially as you start to see results. I think that's one of the biggest drivers and motivational factors is seeing results, right? If you lose 10 pounds over a month or a couple months, if you gain a couple pounds of muscles over a couple of months, you're going to want to continue that same regimen. You're going to want to continue to track that progress. But I love MyFitnessPal. I love the Lose It apps. I love a couple of other, you know, just websites or apps in general that my clients like to use because it works for them. So it all kind of goes back to the top and finding what is going to work for you individually and establishing good habits. Like, you know, it sounds like Mike, you're on, you know, a great streak here where it's every day, every meal, you're tracking what you eat. And that Fitbit is going to keep track of how many calories you burn. And at the end of the day, it might even give you a little bit of a breakdown or a chart or some sort of graph that says, hey, we're doing really, really well in terms of what you're looking to do and, you know, with your goals, or maybe we're not on the right page or in the right spot and we've got to change. And I think that's the biggest thing with technology is it's going to give you that immediate feedback. It's going to tell you in real time if we've got to do something different or continue the status quo because it's working for us. I think the other cool thing about, you know, the Lose It app, MyFitnessPal, that sort of thing, is you're able to track your protein. A lot of, again, my clients that are above the age of 60, protein intake is a little bit of a problem for them. Dinner, whether they're, you know, busy with the grandkids or, you know, off, you know, doing the things they like to do in retirement. Sometimes that diet just happens to slip their mind. And if we're not getting that adequate protein intake, your muscles really do atrophy, especially, you know, a lot more than you would maybe in your 30s and 40s, especially in your teen years. So if we're not tracking at least that protein intake, you know, I think you're really doing yourself a disservice. We should at least be getting about a consult your health professional, your doctor, fitness professional that you feel comfortable with to make sure that that's healthy for you. But protein is a crucial element as well as calories in general. Making sure that you're not intaking too many bad fats, right? Again, everybody's human. We love the ice creams and the pizzas and, you know, milkshakes, all that good stuff. But too much of a good thing is a bad thing. There is, you know, cholesterol, LDLs, HDLs, all that stuff that potentially these apps can track. And I think doctors are so much more accessible nowadays than they even were 5 years ago, but having that response in real time saying, yes, you are doing well, or, hey, we've got to change some things is very, very important. And it goes a long way in terms of keeping you on track and motivated on a daily basis.
Mhm.
So very, very cool. And
So
again, the one thing that I would do to start that, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, the information that we get really provides a valuable input, because I noticed that, you know, on I use a scale, you know, I weigh in every morning. First thing I get up, get on the scale, and it calculates, you know, my BMI and, you know, muscle mass. And I noticed that as I've been losing weight the last 6 months, my muscle mass is decreasing. Right. And so I got to thinking, geez, you know, I've got to up my protein and strength exercise, right? I mean, I'm just losing muscle out of the thing. I need to do a little bit different kind of exercise. So, you know, the feedback is really, I think, important. And, you know, I'd probably, if it kept losing muscles, you know, I'd come see you, Corey, and ask what in the devil's going on here.
Yep.
You know?
And I think the beauty of that is, you know, a lot of my clients ages 15 to 90, with a little bit of stimulus, you would be surprised on how effectively we can work your muscles as long as you are getting that adequate protein and caloric intake. You're right, Mike. You could be losing weight and, you know, that scale looks fantastic. My goal is to lose 10 pounds and I'm there. But at the end of it all, if we're not building strength, especially as we get older, one thing that I really see is, you know, osteoporosis, osteopenia, bad posture. My grandfather's 86, currently in a nursing home right now, and they've got him on a protein regimen because his balance was suffering, right? His muscles just weren't strong enough to be able to support the things he wanted to do on a daily basis. And you're, again, completely correct, Mike. You could be logging all the calories and all the, you know, good food that you want on your watch, or maybe in a notebook or whatever you have. But if you've got something that's tracking your protein and tracking your good fats and giving you that real-time response and feedback, that's really where you're going to see the most efficient use of your time and efficient use of technology overall in general. Very, very good point, Mike. Which actually leads me into my next point here. So we've got a machine in our club called an InBody 570. It was actually a machine created by NASA to track the muscle atrophy or the muscle loss of astronauts coming in and out of space, how gravity affected certain things. And not that everybody is going to have access to this machine. I'm actually going to turn my phone here and just kind of, it's in the corner of my office. So this is the InBody machine right there. So there's a scale kind of at the bottom there. You hold on to the handles there, right on the sides. And again, it sends an electrical pulse through your body that you do not feel, and it tracks where your muscle is located. Are you a little bit more dominant in your lower half than your upper half? It tracks where your body fat is located. A lot of my clients carry, a lot of people in general just carry a lot of it below their belly button, right in that stomach area. It'll tell you if it's maybe a little bit more in your arms or maybe a little bit more in your legs. It also is great at giving us our visceral fat count. So that visceral fat is actually fat that surrounds your inner organs, and you can be as skinny as a beanpole, but if you've got too much fat around your organs, you really do see, you know, an increased risk of diabetes, stroke, heart attack, cancer. I mean, obviously all stuff that we don't want to see at all in our lifetimes. But it again puts us on a good track to say, well, what do we need to do to drop body fat, to make sure our BMI decreases or whatever the case may be. Again, it also gives us a great count of how many calories we burn on a daily basis. I always go back to, if you're burning 2,000 calories a day and you're also working out, you're chasing grandkids, you're, you know, walking with your friends, you know, going and playing basketball, pickleball, tennis, golf, whatever you've got to do, it gives us a really good indication on a daily basis of how many calories we need to be putting in our body and maybe what we need to be doing in terms of keeping our muscles healthy and active. The other thing that it also does is it really makes, or it really does a great job giving us ratios of where our muscle is located at. So one thing we don't want to see is, you know, for right-handed individuals, you have more muscle mass in your right arm versus your left. I see a lot in my elderly clients. They're usually dominant on one leg versus the other. And what that can cause is an imbalance, right? I always talk about quality of life, independence, making sure you can get in and out of bathtubs, showers, gardening, getting up and down off the ground, out of your bed, out of chairs. If your muscles are imbalanced and you're always using one side or one muscle group over the other, there's a potential for injury and risk there. I've seen a lot where people consistently use their left leg. All of a sudden they happen to slip, fall, maybe catch themselves with their right leg. And because that muscle mass isn't there, you cause, and this machine also gives us a good indication of how much muscles in our torso, right? From your neck to your waist, all the way around front side and back side. I think a lot of my clients love to train with me because I'm very core oriented. A lot of the Fitbits and my Fitness Pals, wearables, they'll give you, hey, this is what I want you to do for a plank. It'll let you customize different core exercises. It'll ask you, right, how long are you doing these exercises for? And I think if we can work from the midsection out, through technology and in making sure that we're tracking everything properly, especially as you get above 60, especially over 65, I think the statistic is 1 in 3 people over the age of 65 will fall and break a bone on a daily basis. We want to combat all that stuff as much as we can. Again, I think the future of fitness is technology, right? The future of everything is going towards artificial intelligence. It's going towards technology, staying engaged with people while you're not right next to them through Facebook, social media, that sort of thing. But what I don't think is going away anytime soon is actually that they don't actually exert themselves and actually go through the exercises and workouts that they need to be going through. I would just strongly suggest meeting with a healthcare professional, meeting with myself. We allow free consultations here at the Princeton Club. We'll give you a guest pass and we can sit you down with a personal trainer or somebody that you feel comfortable with. The future is not only in technology, but I think it's also in personal relationships. I think that's getting lost in today's age. I don't think I really need to explain why or how that is to this group here in particular, but I see it on a daily basis. People are just getting further and further apart. They don't want to come into the gym. They want to do things through Zoom. They want to do things great. But if you don't have other people keeping you accountable, if you don't have something on your wrist to keep you accountable, some of those results do get lost in translation. And one thing that I have found is a lot of my clients see a lot more success seeing me in person on a very consistent basis, also using the technology rather than just strictly using their watch or strictly using their Fitness Pal. Again, having somebody in your corner, somebody that's going to point you in the right direction and aid you in some of these processes is always going to be beneficial, in my opinion. So I guess without further ado, does anybody have specific questions? Is there anything maybe Mike or maybe Jim that I haven't talked about or covered?
Well, I've got a couple of things. A lot of us in our age group are having trouble with our joints and so on. And I've gone through a couple of knee replacements. And this last time I had a knee replacement in late May. And starting in about February, I got a personal trainer. This was at the Y. I've been a Y member forever. And I said, these are the things I want to do. I want to build the muscles around my knees so that, they'll respond when the surgery happens and they get sort of destroyed. And I was very religious about it, and we worked together. And my surgery went so much better than my first one did years ago.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, it was just, I healed real well, and I had that strength. I was able to get back to the Y after a couple of weeks and continue working with this guy, as well as the physical therapists that were helping, with the rehab. And so it really worked. There are other aspects of technology that I think are interesting are, and this is at the Y, and I'm sure you have, the similar Jim, but all of the things like stationary bikes and treadmills and all those things now will track the calories you're burning and the heart rate that you're getting up to and stuff like that. So you can see, again, in real time, whether it's helping. And a neat thing at the Y is they have something called an e-gym program. And I don't know, Corey, if you're aware of this, you probably are. It's probably one of many similar things. But this program, you meet with a trainer and they measure all sorts of things and weigh you and all kinds of high-tech stuff that I don't understand. And it designs a program for you. And at the Y, the e-gym program at the West Y involves 11 different stations of weight training machines. And correct me if I'm getting the terms wrong, Corey.
Sure.
But,
no, you're doing great.
And each one tests you on your strength at that particular exercise. And then given that information plus all the other stuff at the beginning, it custom tailors how you exercise on that machine and the weight at which you exercise. And it changes over time. Hopefully you're gaining strength, and it changes the kinds of exercises you do. You can make a circuit in 20 some minutes and go through 11 stations. And, it's probably best if you do 2 circuits. That's what's recommended. But I feel like I'm getting a really good workout and I'm making progress because it follows me and tells me and shows me what I need to do. And so I think, again, that's the direction of fitness. There's a bit of a learning curve. You've got to go through a training program and everything to do it, to be allowed to do it. But lots of people are doing it. Lots of seniors, younger kids, high school and college age are doing it. And everything in between. So I think it's a really, and so that's a technology, oriented exercise program.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, Jim. And the other thing too is not everybody can afford a personal trainer, right? Not everybody can afford to see somebody like myself 3, 4, maybe 5 times a week. And if you can have something at your fingertips like that, you said it was e-training. I don't really know specifically what they call it per se. But if you can have an app, e-gym, an app, a structured regimen that's going to keep you on track. Again, it sounds like it's very tailored to you, Jim. So again, that's one thing
I think it is.
Yeah.
And there is, I failed to mention too, there is an app that goes with it on your phone. So you can track, your progress too. So I'm not a big tech guy. I mean, I'm comfortable with it, but I don't use as much of it as I probably should, even with this app. But what I have done, I feel lots better. I'm moving better, and I mean, it's a work in progress for sure. But
and I think you're not alone, Jim. I'll be brutally honest with you. I'm not a huge tech guy all the time. I'm very old school, pen and piece of paper when I train my clients. I do rely on technology for a lot of things in my life, but I don't let it run me, right? I don't let it completely control every aspect of my life. So it sounds like, Jim, what you've found is a way to keep it simple. And it also relates to what your specific goals are, right? You're going to see a lot of technology, and there's a lot of things and a lot of functions on these watches and wearables where a lot of times we don't need all of that technology. So finding what's going to work best for you, and maybe, I don't want to say limiting it per se, but making sure that it's really relating to you as an individual. You don't want to go somewhere that's just going to give you a blanket routine or just something, hey, this worked for 2 or 3 of my clients, it's got to work for you. There should be some individuality with some of that stuff. And if it works for you, that's fantastic. That's the main thing, is it has to produce results, and it's got to be simple. A lot of times if you're mentally too focused about something, including technology, the physical aspect gets lost in translation a little bit. So that's awesome, Jim. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Another that involves technology and exercise that I have been recommending is an e-bike.
Yes.
I got involved with that. My daughter works for Trek, so I kind of got in early about 5 years ago. And I found it just to be a wonderful way of getting out in the world, getting exercise without really even noticing it. And you can tailor that too, to work as hard or as lightly as you want. I've kind of parked it in the garage this year because I had a bad crash a year ago, just about a year ago. So I'm kind of tentative with it, and that's something to consider too. As we age, we break easier, and
Sure.
I did some real painful damage to my ribs and so on. So I'm not so sure. But anyway, I just wanted to add that I found for several years that it was a great, help to maintaining some level of fitness.
Jim,
Absolutely. And you'd also, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Jim, your issue with your e-bike, more and more of our Tucson friends are getting e-trikes, and they
Yeah.
just, they said it's saved their knee surgery.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about it. I get discounts through my daughter at Trek, and they don't make trikes, so it's pretty expensive.
Darn the luck.
How many of those
and
could you
I
get,
think,
Jim?
What?
How many of those deals could you get? 18,
Um,
20?
She can get a certain number for her family each year. Well, yeah, talk to me, Mike. We'll talk.
You bet. Well,
Well,
I
one
think
thing
you
about,
raised a very good point, Jim. Go ahead, Mike, if you got
well, I was just
a-
going to
a
say,
moment.
I'm just going to say, Jim and I had talked before about how expensive it is to have, a gym membership. It's not really that expensive, I guess, but Jim brought up that he gets a membership through his Medicare Part C, right, Jim? Isn't
Yeah,
that
well,
it?
it's through the the auxiliary policy that I have.
Right.
But lots of insurers do that. So I don't pay a thing at the Y. I mean, I paid for the personal trainer. I didn't look into getting that paid for, actually. Maybe I could have, actually. I didn't think about that. But it really takes care of, I mean, I would be paying that membership fee either way, because I really enjoy, going to the Y, but luckily I don't have to. So it's something to check into.
And the one thing I do like to tell my clients, and especially our gym goers here, the gym membership, and maybe it's an e-bike, maybe it's technology that you're purchasing. But if you're not going to invest in your health now, you're probably going to have to invest later on in life in a way that you may or may not want to, right? Whether it's through paying for medication, whether it's paying to, have assistance, or, whatever the case may be, or whatever may come into your life, you just want to put that emphasis and that, you want to invest now so you don't have to deal with that on the back end, whether, again, it's all that technology we mentioned. But you, again, raise another good point, Jim, whether it's riding on your e-bike, whether it's maybe swimming in a pool, whether it's gardening, again, golfing, doing whatever physical activity that honestly just get you moving, right? Not everybody likes to come to the gym and, crank out bicep curls and presses and do all the machines and things. So if you've got something wearable that can keep track of just your ordinary activity, that's also burning calories. You mentioned, doing physical activity without even realizing it. I just remember when I was a kid at 10, 11, 12 years old, and we would go outside for recess, and we would come in soaking in sweat, right? We would have run around on the football field or the soccer field, and we didn't even realize we were working out because we were enjoying the things we were doing. So that's the balance that I really try to strike with my clients and our members here, is you want to enjoy everyday life. You want to enjoy activities with your friends and family. And if you've got something on your wrist or something that you can track some of that stuff with, that way you may not have to go to the gym, for an hour every day or every few days. Not that I don't recommend that, but it again just keeps you accountable, and it really does, aid in your lifestyle, making sure that you're doing the things you need to do. Awesome. And then, the other thing I almost forgot to mention, we do have our bikes here too, ellipticals that will keep track of your heart rate, calories burnt, that sort of thing. One thing that I will say is that is very, it's not always the most accurate, right? So again, wearing a Fitbit or having something next to you is really going to either solidify, or maybe if it's contradicting some of that information, that we might need to make a change, right? Tell your gym or tell somebody at the facility that something isn't right, because the last thing we want to do is go through a fitness regimen incorrectly for an extended period of time, and it doesn't get anybody any results, or you don't see anything on the back end. So.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Absolutely.
I may have to go out and get a Fitbit.
And
have,
Mike was mentioning, you can be very spendy on some of these pieces of technology, but you can also find some, not even like a Fitbit name. If you go on Amazon and type in wearable, exercise watch or anything of that kind, of fitness wearable, you can find some really great off-brand products that aren't going to cost you hundreds of dollars. It's not going to, need a subscription or anything like that. Again, it all kind of circles back to what I mentioned first and foremost, is you've just got to find what works for you as an individual. And once you have it, use it to the best of your ability and consistently.
I actually use a Garmin, which I just absolutely love. And the main reason for the one I got was because my husband wanted me to be able to track my blood oxygen levels, because I've got some breathing issues at night, and it wakes him up so he can wake me up and roll me over so I start breathing again.
Right. And Lee, that's an awesome point. I'm again, only 30 years old, so I may not have to worry about some of that stuff, but for the demographic that's meeting here today, that is crucial, right? If you're not getting adequate oxygen, or if your sleep cycles are off, or maybe it's tracking your GPS location, right? I know with those Garmin's, they kind of have the map feature in there as well. Let's say you do have an accident on your e-bike, or let's say you are, walking or going somewhere and somebody needs to find out where you are. That technology on your wrist or in your pocket is going to aid in that, whether it's a button, whether it's an actual function where it says, hey, we've got to call somebody for you right now. I think that is a very great point, Lee. Thank you very much for bringing that up. The sleep is almost more important sometimes than the actual physical activity. So if you can track the oxygen levels and everything that we just mentioned, you're only going to be benefiting yourself. It's never going to be a hindrance unless it's waking you and your husband up every 5 to 10 minutes. Then we might need to talk to somebody or maybe find something different. But that's a great point, Lee. Very, very good point.
Leah, you may have, some sleep apnea going on. And it's none of my business if you've looked into it, but I do. And speaking of tech, have a pretty high-tech CPAP machine that I couldn't live without. I mean, and I sleep so much better.
Yeah, I actually was diagnosed with apnea and hypopnea. And I had been using a CPAP, but it got recalled, and I still haven't gotten a replacement for it.
Yeah, boy, I kept using my recalled machine because I would rather take my chances there than not sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can talk individually.
Well, I have a question for you then, Leah. Do you ever take any of that information from your Garmin to your healthcare provider, to your doctor, or anything like that?
I haven't at this point, but they've been tracking all of my numbers, and amazingly, since I retired, I've lost all the weight I gained in the last 5 years that I worked. But that's made a huge difference in my numbers.
That's awesome.
And the last time I was at the sleep clinic, they said, you're just not the same person you were 5 years ago. And I went,
That's great.
Well, and that's another great, people overlook stress. They overlook their, just overall lifestyle habits. And with the technology, it just gives you a much better perspective. And, whether you're giving this information to a doctor or anybody else, let's say they were to ask for it. Let's say something were to happen in our physical health to where, they need some answers. They need a direction to go towards, that maybe their tests, or maybe they just need to confirm something. You're going to have that information to you. I think it's all saved somewhere. You should be able to pull that up, whether it's online in the app or actually on your wearable. But that's a great point. It's going to track your stress, your blood pressure, right? It's going to track all that stuff to make sure that you're doing the things necessary in order to achieve the best physical fitness that you can.
Exactly.
Corey,
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name's
I can hear you. Great.
I'm sorry, I was about 15 minutes late. I had an unexpected thing come up, but my question you may have answered already in the first part that I missed, and that is if there's any specific recommendations you have for a type, like a Fitbit. I don't have any of that yet, but through my insurance, I can get either something that simply measures your heart rate, or another thing that costs $20 more. That's it's called an activity tracker.
Yeah, I would say having something that tracks your activity is always going to be more beneficial. The one thing that I did mention in those first 15 minutes is you don't want that technology to overwhelm you, right? You don't want to get
Right.
that technology that has so much activity on it that it kind of oversaturates, the purpose.
That's why I haven't got one yet. I mean, I've heard many times from others that it's ideal to do 10,000 steps a day or something. So something keeping it simple is what I need. Believe me, my kids would verify that. So
And that,
all right.
and that's great self-awareness. Again, some of my clients that especially are over the age of 67 years old, they love the fact that it tracks their blood pressure, heart rate, their sleep. They can go online and look at all this stuff on a daily basis. It keeps them engaged, right? But I have other clients that say, I just need to know my heart rate, my blood pressure, and what activities I'm doing, how many calories I'm burning. I don't need all that extra jazz. We just got done talking with Leah, right? Where she's got a Garmin, where that's going to give you a lot of great things that people sometimes may or may not need. Again, it really depends on the individual, and I would absolutely just play with it a little bit. I think you can set those steps to be, it doesn't have to be 10,000. Maybe you start at 2,000. I know there's a stair stepping function on the Fitbit and my Samsung watch that tracks how many stairs I do. And initially when I purchased the thing, it wanted me to do like 50 sets of stairs on a daily basis. And as much as I would love to do 50 stairs, that just wasn't going to happen. So I just made that manual adjustment. And again, having something that's relatable to what you're looking to do physical fitness wise is very important. And in my very humble opinion, finding something that is simple to you, doesn't matter if it's, $500, $600 watch, or maybe it's only, $30 to $50. That's the most important aspect.
Right. I'll put in a plug for playing pickleball. I'm addicted to it. So it'll be interesting to see what this gadget, when I get it, what the feedback is regarding pickleball activity.
Absolutely. You'll burn some calories doing pickleball. That's for sure.
It's no, I never feel winded or like I've done anything aerobic, but it's engaging in a lot of different ways, mentally and a little, somewhat physically, but it's basically, like you said, it's fun. I love doing it. And so that gets me out as often as the weather allows, because I'm doing outdoors so far.
That's perfect. And I know we got some pickleball courts at the West Side Princeton Club. We don't have anything here at Fitchburg, but you're right. Doing things that you love and are able to do. And if you're able to track that through your, a wearable or technology, that's why we're here. I mean, that's what we want to accomplish. So that's great.
Thank you.
You bet.
I like the fitness tracker on my Garmin because it actually, I've activated the link between the watch and my phone. So when I'm done exercising, 10 minutes later, I get this little notification on my phone that says your numbers are ready to look at. And it gives me, just the 3 basic things I'm interested in for that session, whether it's walking or working out or, and it's saved right there. I can just plug my phone into my computer or the watch into my computer, either one, and open up the app, and there it is. It's really simple.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And, I think a lot of times you mentioned the mental side of things too. I mean, just having something to do that you enjoy and you're able to track. I know my Samsung watch literally gives me an option to track if I'm gardening. It gives me an option to track. I think one of them is crochet, so these are, just very interesting things that you should be able to find. Maybe it's walking your dog. It could be going to the park with your kid. You're probably going to be able to find a different activity to put on your wearable that's going to be able to track that. So again, it doesn't have to be pickleball. It doesn't have to be tennis or maybe something crazy strenuous, but finding something that's going to make sure that just tracking accurately on a daily basis is always going to be better than not. So very, very good input. And then I guess I have just a couple of minutes left. Does anybody have any last minute questions, comments, concerns, maybe anything from you, Mike or Jim, that we didn't cover?
Anyone, any final questions here for Corey?
Another thing that I found helpful is an app called Strava, which tracks, it probably tracks a lot of things, but it tracks distance. When I was riding my bike, I used that. And And I think it would track distance running or walking or whatever else you were doing too. But I think it was a free app. I mainly used it on my bike, so I'm not using it now, but it worked really well, I thought.
What was the name of that, Jim?
Strava, Strava.
S-T-R-A.
And I have heard great things about Strava.
Yeah. And at first it was a little bulky, but it overall it worked real well for me. Yeah, and that's just that's an app that you can go to your app store and enter the name, and it'll pop up and you can download it.
We have friends in Tucson that swear by it, and they've got me they got us to start using it. But my husband swears by, it's an app called Map My Ride.
Yeah.
And I first discovered that and told him about it. And he just, every time he rides, he's got to look at that map.
Yep. It also works for sports cars. I'm in a sports car club, and we often will take real interesting routes, but then forget what the heck they were. And this will tell us.
You and I have to talk about that later.
Okay.
Well, Corey, if you've got to take off and there are no other questions, then I'll just take a second here to thank you so much for doing this hour
Corey,
for us.
I jumped in here too. This was
Corey,
great.
How could people get in touch with you? Do you have a way to get in touch with people if they were interested in meeting?
I do. So I do have an email address. It's C as in cat, Nelson, Nelson at PrincetonClub.net. I think email is probably the most efficient way to get a hold of myself on a daily basis. We also have my credentials and information on our Princeton Club website. So if you do go to PrincetonClub.com, go to the Fitchburg location, you should be able to find myself and my contact info. But honestly, I would trust anybody within our chain of Princeton Clubs to do a fantastic job with anybody they meet with. So whether you're maybe closer to the west side, we have a location on the east side. We also have a location in New Berlin, kind of down by the Waukesha area. Again, I just strongly suggest meeting with somebody, whether it's myself, another fitness professional, personal trainer. It could be your doctor. Maybe your doctor has some people that they would rather point you in their direction as well. Just, I think getting a good baseline of your fitness goals, what your limitations or maybe some maybe obstacles that you may face are going to be, and then coming up with a specific plan, right? This technology is great, but if you don't have a plan in place for you to use it, you're not going to have the results and success that you want. So I would say, again, my email address is cnelson, Nelson, at PrincetonClub.net. We also have a phone number here in case anybody wants to call us. It is 608-441-7000. But I would say, again, the quickest way to just get a hold of me specifically would definitely be the email.